Welcome to Orion Philosophy, where we explore, discuss and dissect areas of practical philosophy for use in everyday life. Death and our impermanence has a profound impact on the way we view the world, the way we view ourselves and the people around us. If we view death in a destructive way, it will hang over us, clouding everything we do. However, there is a way to view death that adds gratitude and vibrance to life. And this perspective employed by the Stoics is exactly what we're going to explore today. The fear of death is something we all encounter at different points in our life. Whether it's dealing with the grief and feelings of loss of the death of a loved one, coming to terms with the fact that a loved one may soon pass, or simply the struggle we all have knowing that one day we will be gone. Today we're going to primarily be exploring Stoic philosophy to find out how not only we can reduce our fear of death, but also use the ever-present reality that one day we won't be here anymore as a tool to look at everything around us and use our mortality as a tool for gratitude. This practice is widely known as Memento Mori, roughly translating from Latin as remembering mortality. When you strip humans down to our bare bones, generally our basic instinctive wiring is to survive and replicate. And given that that is true, death is clearly a non-desirable. So much so that we don't even like thinking about it, we don't like contemplating it, and in extreme cases we don't even like accepting it as a reality. And while the denial of death can make us feel warm and fuzzy, it can also lock us out of the practical benefits that come from its contemplation. After all, we are all going to die. We're all temporary. Our time is limited, and our experience of this life will come to an end. Stoicism tells us that reminding ourselves of this reality can have a huge improvement on the way we live. The Stoics taught that in the constant reminder of death, we can learn how to live. Almost counterintuitively, thinking about death can help us live better, happier, and more present lives. So we've gone through a bit about what Memento Mori is. Now let's have a look at how exactly it can achieve what I've just described. The concept of Memento Mori has spanned both time and culture. We've already seen that the Stoics use Memento Mori, but it's also been used by people like the Buddhists, all in an effort to learn how to live better lives. And as we've said, it's the reminder that your death is inevitable, that your time is limited, and one day there will be a day where you and I won't wake up to enjoy the beautiful experience of life. With modern medicine as it is, death is a guarantee. No matter where you were born, how rich you are, or what you were doing during your life, there will be a day where you die. At least until someone comes up with a way not to. And on that day, we will be asking ourselves entirely new philosophical questions. Ultimately, death is simply change, and change is the nature of the universe. However, for those of us who know how to use it, the reality of death helps us cultivate a greater appreciation of life. If you can humor me for a moment and imagine that you only have 1 week left to live. Now imagine that in this last remaining week, you have a list of things you want to do, people that you want to spend time with, and places that you want to go. For most of us, we have a pretty short list of things that we do in a week, and it normally includes the people we love, the things we love doing, or the things we've always wanted to do but never have. Memento Mori uses this same principle, but instead of only having a week to live and think about death, we have our entire life. Memento Mori allows us to look honestly at our mortality, and in doing so it helps us clarify what's important. It helps us find our values. It helps us be grateful for things because we know that these things are limited. And it helps us focus on problems that really matter, not the small insignificant bickering that ultimately wastes our time and doesn't add any value to our lives. Ancient Stoic philosophy is full of examples that instructed students to meditate on death and to contemplate their mortality. In his letters, Seneca speaks of the benefits from meditating on death. He wrote the following: "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. The one who puts the finishing touches on their life each day is never short of time." The Stoic philosopher Epictetus recommends that whenever you spend time with your loved ones, whenever you hug your family or kiss your partner, you should remind yourself that they are mortal. There will come a day where the people you love will no longer be there. This reminder is not intended to make us sad, and it's not intended to be morbid, but it does help us to appreciate what we have and really focus and be present when we're with these people, because we never really know how much time we have left with them. The Stoic philosopher and emperor of Rome, Marcus Aurelius, also practiced Memento Mori, contemplating his own mortality to guide his actions. In the book Meditations, he wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do. and say and think. Stoic philosophers did not see death as a morbid idea to be avoided. It was a core aspect of life that needed to be accepted, even embraced, and ultimately used as a tool to appreciate each new day, remaining grateful for the time that we have, and guiding our actions. After all, death is ultimately outside the reach of our control. It's true that we can eat well, we can exercise, we can sleep well, and do what we can to live a long and happy life, but ultimately our end will come. And like anything outside our control, worrying too much and focusing too much energy here ultimately does us no good. Shifting to another philosopher, in Plato's recount of the death of Socrates, arguably Athens' most famous philosopher, Socrates famously met death with a calm indifference, and his last words were said to be uttered to a close friend about paying a debt of chickens. Plato argues that the study of philosophy is about nothing else but dying. It is a path taken to find a way of living and a way of thinking about life that ultimately allows us to face death calmly and with grace. The concept of Memento Mori is not just found in Western philosophy, it also echoes in Eastern philosophy as well. I'm sure we've all heard of the samurai. As a kid, we probably all wanted to be one, or at least at some point pretended to be one. The samurai used death as a mental practice to enjoy life, to conquer fear, and ultimately become better warriors. The way of the samurai is, morning after morning, the practice of death, considering whether it will be here or there, imagining the most sightly way of dying, and putting one's mind firmly in death. Although this might be a most difficult thing, if one will do it, it can be done. There is nothing that one should suppose cannot be done. There is a comparison that can be made between human life and the Japanese cherry blossoms. In Japan, the cherry blossom has become part of the culture, and the pink-white blossoms can be followed through the country as the blossom moves with the change in temperature. A large part of what makes the blossom beautiful is that they only last for a short period of time. In a similar way, enjoyment of life becomes more profound because it's fleeting. The Buddhists of Tibet have a practice called the 4 thoughts that turn the mind. One of these thoughts is the contemplation of death, and of our impermanence. It consists of the following. All things made from other things are impermanent. The human body is a thing made from other things. Therefore, the death of the body is certain. The time of death is uncertain and beyond our control. It's very easy to see a parallel here between Buddhism and Stoicism, but this Buddhist idea specifically was designed for daily contemplation. It was done to prevent the natural human tendency to behave as though we have all the time in the world. This central teaching of Buddhism is called Marasanati, or death awareness, and is thought to be a core part of living a better life. This is a tool that we can all use in day-to-day life. All of this helps us become aware of how short our time really is, and in doing so helps us question whether or not we are making the most of the time we have. And to close with some final thoughts, for me, Memento Mori is made up of a certain amount of order and chaos. Left to its own devices, our base human nature is pretty chaotic. Without us putting in some effort to stop it, our mind starts to tick over and over in unconscious loops, essentially putting us into autopilot. And with how busy our modern day is, it's easy for our mind to always have something to pick up and think about. Before we know it, we've woken up, we've had breakfast, we've gone to work, we've come home from work, we've stuck the TV on and we've gone to bed. And in that time, we're mostly on autopilot. We haven't really been present, and we take a lot of what's around us for granted. This unconscious chaos can be balanced with order when we take the time to consciously be aware of what's around us, consciously be aware of the moment, and consciously be grateful not only for the time we have, but for the people and experiences that fill that time, and also grateful for ourselves. We're often far too hard on ourselves, magnifying our mistakes and pushing aside our achievements. But balanced gratitude for me isn't just about being grateful for what's around us, it's also being grateful for who we are and what we've gone through. This order helps us appreciate what we have, and prevents that autopilot from ticking over and taking everything for granted.